Hi, welcome. This is our third talk in our series of talks with you, where we're discussing the pyramid, or we're discussing all the subjects that we are trying to cover during the Biennale. Our theme is information crisis. And if you've been to the central exhibition or have one of our magazines, you have seen this pyramid. That is a diagram we're using to structure the biennium. Yes, thank you. And this pyramid, this diagram is called the knowledge hierarchy pyramid. It's a diagram we took from the information management sciences. And actually, it's a relational pyramid that goes from data to wisdom. Meaning that from data you get information, from information you get knowledge, from knowledge you get wise, hopefully. You see in our diagram we have this string, 2 lines underneath the whole pyramid. That's called we redesigned it and using this as the representation of the information crisis, as comes as shaking the whole pyramid. This is how we intend to talk about it in our biennium. We are doing in each talk, each one of these parts of the pyramid. There are 5, there's a whole system in the biennial, there are 5 rooms in the central exhibition as well. And we tend to do 5 talks, actually 4, because in the first talk we did 2 of these divisions of the pyramid. The data is supposed to be the second one. The first would be the information crisis, and data was supposed to be the second one of our talks, and we postponed it to be now because of the opening of the exhibition of Livia, who is here with us, and her exhibition opened yesterday, and we wanted to match these 2 events together because the exhibition is about data and the sovereign, and here this talk we're going to talk about data. So it made sense for us to change this order just because of this. And so this week we had a cluster of events in relation in regards to this subject that is huge. You see, like with me now, I have so many things on my head that I try to pin down and how to talk about this. I'm just a curator, not a data scientist, data analyst, all the names that you can put out there. But I will try to talk a little bit just the context of how we saw data in our exhibition and through the lenses of design. I also want to talk about just before, like our magazines. Each one of the magazines, this is our catalog for the biennial. Each magazine we're also doing under this system, and we have one for data that we're actually launching today, which is really like a happy moment for us that we're trying to each talk to launch one magazine, and this magazine talks about the works at the exhibition and we have opinions here. We have an article by our advisors. And also, of course, the whole curatorial idea behind each one of these chapters. Yes, Thomas is just, he's helping me out. We also have one collaboration with eFlux Architecture. I don't know if you guys know of this platform. We did an editorial collaboration with them where we had the chance to use their archive and select some of the best texts and essays that we found related to each one of the subjects of the magazines. For this one, we have James Bridle, who wrote the book The Dark Age. So it's super interesting article where he talks about patterns and the visualization of patterns in big data and the problems behind it, of course. And in these, we also, our collaboration goes also online. So we took they're just an online platform, right? And then we were publishing, bringing them offline. And our biennial also go online when we suggested canonical books, historical works related to each one of these subjects, where they invited their authors to respond to our theme. And the publication started before yesterday. And then it's going to go on for the next couple of weeks. So we have 5 essays coming out. So, I mean, if you're interested in the subject, I think it's something nice that you could check out online. Yes, after all the infomercial, all the data that you got. So we start with how we see data here. To To be honest, talking about all these parts of this diagram, data is quite the most complicated one to pin down, especially because we're following Akov's definition of these parts, right? So how he defines data is actually to signals, or can be numbers, can be objects, but without contextualization, without analysis yet. So imagine for us to curate a whole room of work that actually talks just about data without information, and how to find this was quite a challenge. But the way we saw it, we tried to find historical works to talk about the history of cybernetics, how we got this whole online digital life that we have now, also personas, we have digital, we are so used to talk in real life, and our life in real life and then online, so now we have these philosophical aspects of how to think our existence nowadays. This is all because of this information crisis that's going on. And also we found works that map structures, works that show sensibilities of machines. We have this in the exhibition of Livia, but also in our central exhibition we have works talking about this. And also using data as resources, right? Because as painters would use paint or using the pencil, designers and creatives are using data as resources to give shapes and to create different ways to create logos, different ways to visualize, to show sound. These are all different kinds of data, and we try to show this in our exhibition. One key question that we had when thinking of this is we are all very afraid of data. It's like a data panic that we live right now. And for sure, the biggest issue in the information crisis, people concerned about the amount of data available. In our research, we found out that this is actually not the problem. The problem is not the amount. There's always every change in technology, every new big shift. Like when we had the printed press, for example, with books coming out, people were very scared of the amount of information available, and all the information would get just cheap and so on. And now we live in the same kind of panic with digital data. But the problem is not that. The problem is more like our literacy and how we use data and how we can analyze it better, how we can see this and use it. So actually this comes to us as a problem of design as well. So design is actually used as a tool to make us understand the world better. So it's always being used as an interface in any kind of life that design has, and any discipline. It can be, of course, the user interface, how you use it, but for every object, everything is an interface between you and an action and behavior and whatever. So I think this is a very crucial moment for design to actually get there and get us out of this crisis instead of contributing to it as it happens a lot. We have several much better speakers on the subject today than me, so I'm not going to prolong myself too much on this. But I want to talk about one aspect of data that for us to think about. It's about bias, data bias and coded bias. This is how they're calling it. It's a whole discipline that I found out about 2 months ago when I was studying for another exhibition. It was not even for our exhibition. And how we use data, how depending on how people are doing mathematical models and so on, to use the algorithms to filter all this data available, it can be very dangerous, right? We talk about security and privacy, but also, these machines actually, talking about artificial intelligence, they're being used to take decisions for us, right? Decisions on how people get credit or not, or if you go to some school or not, even for job interviews. If you're being, several companies are using it already, that when they're doing interviews, you're being video recorded, and this is being actually analyzed by a machine to see, depending on how your face reacts, it's mapping every emotion that you have, and then they match with the best performances in your company, and you might be the chosen candidate or not. So we are just releasing too much control for this, artificial intelligence and computing. We're giving too much of our power to these machines, thinking that they are neutral, or that, it's always talked of super intelligence and then we don't need government anymore. And I think it's quite dangerous to go into this direction. I want to show one video, two videos actually, it's very short, just to show a little bit of this bias that I'm talking about, this coded bias. This work is not present in our exhibition here. It's in my other exhibition in Vienna that talks about feminism and digital. She's the first one, the other one first, the short one. Yes. So before I show the work, just to tell, she's Joy. She's a researcher at MIT. She's African descendant. And what she found out is that the tracking mechanism of the cameras could not read darkened skin people correctly, because all the machine learning, like the trainings that the machines get, they're usually by white men or so on. So she entered in this conversation from the art perspective, but also showing that we have to be very diverse in our coding as well as in our society. Otherwise, there's a big problem going on. So I think it's two beautiful works you can see now.
Hi, camera. I've got a face. Can you see my face? No glasses face. What about my hair? Back to my face. You can see her face. What about my face? So I've got it now. Can you see my mouth?
Then we can go to the next one. Is this the loudest you can get? So this one you have to listen really, because it's like 2 minutes that she's doing singing poetry. So try to listen to that.
Knowing their lives have altered many destinies. In her eyes, I see my mother's poise. In her face, I glimpse my auntie's grace. In this case of deja vu, a 19th century question comes into view. In a time when Sojourner Truth asks, ain't I a woman? Today we pose this question to new powers, making bets on artificial intelligence, hope towers. The Amazonians peek through windows blocking deep blues as faces increment scars. Old birds, new urns, collecting data chronicling our past, often forgetting to deal with gender, race, and class. Again I ask, ain't I a woman? Face by face the answers seem uncertain. Young and old, proud icons are dismissed. Can machines ever see my queens as I view them? Can machines ever see our grandmothers as we knew them? Ida B. Wells, data science pioneer, hanging facts, stacking stats on the lynching of humanity, teaching truths hidden in data, each entry and omission, a person worthy of respect. Shirley Chisholm, unbought and unbossed, the first Black congresswoman, but not the first to be misunderstood altar, echoing sentiments that strong women are men. We laugh, celebrating the successes of our sisters with serena smiles. No label is worthy of our beauty.
I think this is quite an interesting work for us to question this, right? Like there's this feeling that all the information is online, but I mean it's digitalized and so on. And we for sure no, it's not. And this work in particular, it was really strong for me to see, like, you know, how people are not even identified correctly by these machines yet, and we talk about machine learning, internet, and artificial intelligence as it was the eureka, the answer to our problems, and we are just beginning to understand where it all is, just where it comes from and how we can work to make it better. So I think I will just stop my talk for now. We have more conversations to come, and it's just to do like a framework of how we can make this issue right now.
So Aline, thank you very much for setting our minds. It's just arriving here with all our daily backgrounds to focus on the subject we want to talk about. But it's not just about talking us, it's getting a conversation with our genius people that we have invited to work with us on this bio. And the two first ones I would like to ask to come on to the panel. It's Sarah Bosanik, please come to the panel, and also Vladan. So let me briefly introduce the two of them. I can imagine that some of you might know them, of course, but not everyone. So Sarah, she's the CEO of the Institute of Transmedia Design, which is based here in Slovenia. She sees herself as a hybrid, a designer, a strategist, an educator and thinker. I think there's been quite a few hybrids around here. So she works across Europe in the field of transmedia design. She believes that digital opens new paths for the public and also fosters an endless series of possibilities for design and designers. Here in Bio, she's one of the initiators, producers, co-curators of the exhibition Constructed Futures, Speculative Design Education, which is part of the associated project, which is presented here at Ajdovščina Passage. It's curated by Ivica Mitrovic and Oleg Sura, and definitely we're going to talk about the exhibition and the whole concept of speculative design, also based on data later on. Vladan, he is an academic, a researcher, an artist, and he works with data investigation, investigative journalism, writing, data visualization, and critical design. So another hybrid, I would say. He explores and visualizes technical and social aspects of AI transparency, digital labor exploitation, invisible infrastructures, and other phenomena at the intersections of technical and social aspects of AI, technology and society. Together with Kate Crawford, in 2018 published the Anatomy of an AI System, which we're also going to talk about, which is part of our exhibition at MAU. and which traveled quite the world and at various museums. He's also in various collections at the V&A, at the ZKM. He exhibited at Ars Electronica, and he also got the Design of the Year at the museum, at the London Design Museum for his works in 2019. So you see, well awarded and decorated people that we have invited, not just for bio, but also talking to us today on the subject of data. Sarah, maybe we can talk a little bit about, we talk about biased data. Data becomes an important resource, as we also try to show in the exhibition, the data as the oil of the 21st century. Speculative design, when it's based on works with data. Also data collection of the past, the present, but also ultimately gives us the possibility to forecast things. And since, with this bio, we actually have a lot of speculative projects, not just in the central exhibition, but also here. Maybe you can tell us from this educational perspective that it's your business in a way as well. I mean, how do you train, or how do you work in the field of speculative design, the use of data, and the classification of data? And speak out loud.
Yeah, does everybody know what speculative design deals with? Should I explain a little bit before? Thanks. So speculative design focuses on designing future scenarios. And is completely grounded in present and the past. So what do we do, especially in our educational processes? We go local, we go small, and we take all the critical negative consequences of today, and we forecast a better future. I always believe speculative design for me is like a new wave of hope. Why? Because we became in some kind of a temporary loop. Like when I was listening to Alina, everything is critical, it's sad, it's depression, it's war. But it's the fact. We at the moment live in the negative world. And if I speak to the students or the people around, we're starting to lose our faith. So what do we do in speculative design? We take all the bad consequences and we turn them into something completely positive, critical, sometimes dystopian, but something that could lead us to a better future. So did I answer the question, Thomas? How do we use that? So usually in the educational process, we see, because speculative EDU is a European-funded project Erasmus+, and is done by the consortium of Goldsmith, Napier University, Herr Miti from Portugal, UMAS, Academy of Art from Split, and us, Institute for Transmedia Design. So we always design the topic we want to work with first. Is it, let's say in Maribor, we had this workshop which was dealing with future friends. Why? It's the same, because today we ask ourselves, who is our future friend? So what we did, we used existing data, we asked a lot, and then we changed it in the new scenarios. So one of the projects that came out is how we use data was, we used the series from the 90s. Does everybody know the series Friends? Someone told you life is not going to be this way. And we said, okay, because Friends were always about social connection, politics, relationships, data, everything what we have in our surrounding, and about the friendship. And we said, okay, if we transform these friendships in 10 years from now, how would it look? So one of the groups of the students integrated the robot into the scene. So the robot was the one that was curating the complete new series, but it was the one that was mobbed the most. Why? Because no one understood him. So how we use that in the current situation was we try to give the knowledge to the machine, but then again to learn from it as well.
So as I would understand it, so you actually start from actual facts, data facts, and you bias them on purpose.
Yes.
To the good.
To the good.
To the good. So another actor within this field of speculative design is Superflux, which we also have in our central exhibition, and Anna Jane, who is one part of Superflux, she now just founded this educational program called Investigative Design, which I mean, implying the terms investigative, I would quite think you try to drive on like datas or fact check datas. I mean, this is also something within the business of design. I mean, how reliable are those future scenarios? I mean, and I wonder, I mean, does this actually add to the credibility in a way also to the design business or to the design world? If you purposely change the meanings of data.
Actually, in speculative design, we as well speculate and re-question the role of the designers. Why? Because of Netflixization, or because what we do, we project like new, groundbreaking, future, imaginative, better scenarios of, I don't know, how to solve environmental politics, but then they usually fail. So it always re-question again, what data in what sense can be used so it's sustainable. And I think Superflux is questioning it as well. But from the sense, because we keep on turning in this loop like a hamster. So speculative design gives you another view to it, so it's provocative. Its ground is in critical design, but it gives you an answer on how to do it differently. Sometimes dystopian, sometimes not. Maybe if I refer again to the project, there is one from Alejandra that I love, that I really like, and it goes to a lot of the cities in Europe. She did a project which is called Splitska Dica. It's like the children of the split, and it deals with the situation in Split that if we even prolong the tourist situation, then there is no flat for students to live in. So what she proposed is to just invade the city with the tents. Why? So everybody can be camping. If we can't get the apartment, what can we do? We can invade the public space and live on it. So what it is, it gives some kind of a critic which is based on the data. It's the fact, the data becomes the fact. So what can we do? We can do a change and all the time provide another message. There is no space for us. Just change the politics and make it.
Vladan, with the anatomy of an AI, you kind of mapped not a scenario, but you kind of fact-checked the data behind a simple, not a simple, complex object, as it turns out, the Amazon Echo. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, the background, or what drove you to do this project.
Okay, so I think it started really a long time ago, but really, maybe like 5-6 years ago, I was like really involved in one group. What we were doing, we were like helping in cases of cyber attacks and different forms of cyber violations online. And so what we were doing in cases of attacks, we had like some guy for cyber forensic, then we are taking data, then we are basically analyzing the body, the murder, like for example DDoS attack. And then I started to visualize all of those data that I had, and then my next obsession was like to go like to try to understand, what's going on behind the screen. And it's not so easy because like most of the devices that I wanted to investigate basically are not in our hands. So if you want to investigate Google, you don't have anything. You have interface. If you want to investigate Facebook, again, the machine is somewhere else. So we step by step we try to investigate something that is out there. First by trying to understand where the data is flowing, then trying to understand the anatomy of different trackers, then trying to understand where those data centers are, trying to go there, trying to make a picture, but in a way, you don't learn a lot by going there and seeing, because like the real machine, it's not a machine, it's like a process within the machine. It's like algorithms and stuff like this. So then after that we try to reverse engineer like different algorithms and try to understand basically how this factory look like, because we are facing those screens and facing those interfaces that are behind them. There are some systems and structures that are producing a lot of money, like value for them, so billions and billions and billions, from where. And so I was trying to visualize this factory, how factory look like, 21st century factory, what is the resource, what are the tools, what are the machines, and by doing that I made like this previous map that is called Facebook Algorithmic Factory. And then I realized, that our position of like human beings in this game, like user, it's like really strange. It's somewhere between, in the same moment we are a resource, because from our bodies and our movements and what we do, it's the data is extracted in a way, the profit is extracted, so we are the resource. Sometimes we have a position of the labor, because we are doing this immaterial work by clicking, liking, whatever. And then in some systems we are in the same time of the product. So I was like really obsessed with this like kind of crazy situation that we are like this kind of hybrid between all of those things. And then with this map, Anatomy of an AI System, we did something completely different. We were thinking, okay, like what I was explaining now is like the middle part of this map, this the middle part. But then I said, okay, what will happen if we add the time component? And then it was like this process of like, let's say like 40 years ago, all of those infrastructures, those like factories of 21st century were different kinds of rocks. And then in transformation of those rocks to those machines of infrastructure, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of labor. So I started to investigate different illegal mining operations. I went to India, to China, to see those factories, to see how those rocks are transformed into the infrastructure, and then again how this infrastructure is again becoming a rock on the other side of the process. And it's a really wild story, and it's not a story about data at all. Data is like superficial. In the sense when I see this triangle of like data, knowledge, I think it's like some kind of marketing scheme. It's not data, information, whatever, knowledge. It's like data, extraction, profit. And basically this map is how this extraction engine look like. Extraction of, and it's parallel extraction of data, extraction of human labor, but also extraction of nature. And yes, so I'm more and more like not so interested in data anymore. I'm more and more by doing this research and seeing all of those places, I'm more and more interested in like trying to understand how contemporary capitalism is hiding its own face so well.
Can you guys hear me
Sorry.
after the microphone? Is it just okay? No? Off? Yeah. So I don't need to take the microphone. Oh, I have 3 billion questions after what you said there. But one thing, I would defend the pyramid. As you said, it's very superficial. I don't think it's superficial, it's the surface. And it comes from another science, that is information science, and this is how they're dealing with like, how to organize the knowledge we have, and then it's another science. Of course, there are a whole system behind it, and this is what you're doing, like this, the power structures or the manufacturing of data. And I love the idea that we are the resources, because Thomas and I were saying like data as resources. Data is also a resource. It's also a resource as for creative output and so on. But our labor, invisible labor, that likes and so on that you describe it, will also used as a resource in the attention economy. Our attention is also a resource somehow to generate funds and whatever riches, wealth for other like third parties. That's not us and not us to control, and there are several disciplines studying this as well. So I mean, and that's why I said like this was the most challenging room in the whole exhibition, and how to think it, because there's so many different aspects and facets that you can look at this, so many different points of view. It's almost impossible to talk about this in just one exhibition. It can be like several PhD theses, and it's just this issue. But I would like to ask you the question, relating a little bit with the two things. One, talking about the attention economy, like this term that has been used several times, if you have any studies that relates to this. And the second is, as Thomas described to you as a hybrid, as we were talking before. It comes from, you can visualize all this system through infographics, the way we're showing here, there's a design job, and also do this activism in a way that you're against the whole system, and how this factory is becoming, how this knowledge is becoming factory somehow. And to see, to ask what's the impact of your work. Like we're talking about this in a cultural context, and this is also how I got to know your work through all the museums and the Triennale in Milan and so on. But is there any impact of your work inside of the cultural scene?
Okay, so start with attention economy.
Yeah.
I think that there are like many economies. There's many. By economy in this sense of many, these imaginations of extraction. So we are able to now claim attention. It's a new gold. So this is the new resource. But basically, how I like to see this reality is like in beginning of industrial revolution, you had this situation that just few individuals or few companies were able to gain monopole on different forms of exploitation, different forms of extraction of either resources like coal or whatever, or infrastructure like big rail companies and so on and so on. So this is what is happening now. But the things now, why they are so liberated, is because they find a fantastic way to reinvent territory. So it's not anymore, you don't need to have a land anymore to extract, diamonds or whatever, because the new territory is basically our body. Not just our body, our mind, our conscious, subconscious. And there it comes attention, or love economy, or economy of faith. For example, the bitcoins are economy of faith. You believe in something, that it will grow or whatever, So this is like new horizons, indefinite horizons of exploitation. But most of them are going deeper into our conscious or subconscious layers. So in order to extract more, and then you have this kind of new golden rush. Basically, it's golden rush about how to run fast through prairie and to put your flag in a new resource. So a new resource is attention or whatever we do. So in that sense, for me, attention economy, it's just one new, layer in this infinite horizon exploitation of our behavior, our bodies, or our products, like what we do. And for the question of like how I really never wanted, or our team that I was working with, or even this investigation with Kate, it was never meant to be any kind of art object or something like this. It was just our need to investigate something and then to try to, because like those maps are the way how I'm able to explain first to myself what I'm seeing, and then try to see the big picture, because what we are trying to do there is to try to face some kind of extreme complexity of reality that we are seeing today. And then those complex maps are for me some kind of therapeutic way to try to draw all of this into one picture. And in the beginning, the first drawings and first maps, like Facebook Algorithmic Factory and those maps of internet infrastructure, are mostly used to scare people, like from different policy makers, and then showing them, this is how it looks like, and this is why this is scary, or whatever. But now it went, after this anatomy of an AI, it went into completely different layers of society, let's say. So a lot of people are using those maps for school curriculums, in a way to have it as a wider picture for some, like educational process, yeah. And then you can speak along. And then some people are using those pictures to, like, for example, frame their own exhibitions, And sometimes it's treated as an art object. Sometimes it's treated as a design object. Sometimes it's treated as some kind of research. For example, there was some kind of like little drama with the Vienna Biennale design, because they were thinking, yeah, but we are treating this as a research, not as an art, and then So lots of people it's kind of confusing what they are, because they also don't speak in the language of science, they don't speak in the language of art completely, and then don't speak in the language of philosophy. And those are the three main, let's say, like angles in which you can try to understand the truth. And what I try there is to try to mix three of them together, because when you're seeing such a complex reality, you need to see this from a lot of different angles. So that's the. Sorry.
I'm just thinking because you said something about truth, and I mean the whole biennial will also question this idea of fake news and post-truth, and I'm just got me thinking about the idea of visualizing truth, or we need to see to believe. This is a very old saying.
We are now like, there was such a crazy ideas now in recent years after this kind of fake news drama about, for example, one of my favorite one in sort of how crazy it is. It's idea that like, for example, Facebook is like guilty for not providing us truth, and now they should build some kind of new proofreading algorithms that will be able to recognize what is truth and what is fake. That's completely crazy idea. To have a mathematical function or AI or machine learning that is being able to tell us what is truth and what is not. Because truth is not a mathematical thing, it's like more philosophical. But we are trying to automatize something, and only way to automatize such a big system is through mathematical functions and through algorithms and through machine learning. And this is why, for me, the most craziest way is that we are trying now to use, statistics to tell the truth.
But this is what we see as a data craze. We're just absolutely in love with this idea that we found the answer to everything. It's just a matter of asking the right questions. But asking the right questions also need to be asked to the right means, or the right people, robots, super intelligence, whatever. But what people and what your work shows is that there are many people involved in this, like his work. Marius, can I put this up again? if you guys haven't seen it yet, the anatomy of an AI system shows what goes behind Alexa, behind the first Amazon ecosystem that the complexity of it's amazing to see, and we place the object and the exhibition together with this on purpose because it's so tiny, and we don't question what goes behind this. We just use it, and it's time for us to question our position as citizens, digital citizens or cyber citizens, how they're calling it. As it's our responsibility to understand what's behind this and to ask critical questions. So I think it's.
To me, it would be interesting because also in this gallery of the exhibition we have actually another work which is the declaration or the contract of the what's it called?
Can you listen to
the data protection. So the book that we printed out and what you actually agree on whenever you say, you give your data away. So this is just to show them, what you actually just signed up for. And your work is pretty much the same, just in a visual, complex network, or what is actually on a label when I have it in my, and I know this is made of plastic bottles or it's made of whatever, bad material. So I just wonder, still, this is going to end up in a gallery, in a museum, but it not ends up at the consumer, where actually all this information behind it should be transparent, made transparent. Because to me, this also kind of shows data actually is not a clean resource. It's a very dirty resource. It's forced labor. It's exploiting nature. What we receive is data, or whatever, music, but it has all this backpack in a way. And I just wondered, is that also, this to me also seems to be a design problem. Now that we did all the research, still there is no, we don't address the problem in itself. I don't know whether you, from the speculative design background, or also the investigative background, what you're, being in the context of a design biennial, what is the next step of this?
I'll go a step back to the attention economy, because if I read all the research and I start to think, it's like, do you all use social media? Like, how many likes per day do you usually get? Do you remember what did you like yesterday? No. It became a learned behavior, and it became the same as switching up or switching down the electricity. It's just something that I see the person, I read the data, but I don't perceive it. It rarely becomes an information, or then again, further something to think, to act. It depends on the level. So I think it's a huge problem and should be addressed by the designers. Because who are we becoming? Everything became so lame for me. We lack in depth. We don't even rethink. We became some kind of machines as well. We just do like. But what did I like?
There's so many. There's from the position of someone who is like standing in front of the device and try to understand deep, extended anatomy of how these things are made and how this thing is working and what is behind. There's so many different layers of untransparency, starting with the object, that you cannot open anymore. If you open the object, then you are breaking the object, and some of them are made to get broken really fast. And then the second layer, it's like even if you open the object, it's either too complex to understand and too miniature, or it's not even there. So what you can have in your hand is just an interface, and the object is somewhere else. And this is just the sensor that is in front of you. And then if you start to go step by step to remove those layers of And another problem is like if you start to investigate, for example, like a complex system as Facebook or the amount of manpower, brain power that you need to have in order to investigate, it's so big that you cannot do it, because they are able to get the brightest minds straight from the university, you know, like, and they are paying them like hundreds and hundreds of thousands per year. So you cannot compete.
So are we trapped?
No, okay, but I also question the position of the government, because there was like this idea of like, you know, like algorithmic transparency. How we can make, and then it's like, okay, it should be like a government body that would be able to perform the audit of the algorithm. Like how, you know, like mid-sized country or developing country will even be able to pay an expert who will be able to do that. And then, for example, when we were investigating Facebook, the thing was like, you know, like you spend time in doing that, but the system is changing so fast that what you're seeing is a picture from the past. You know, and so on, so on. So there are so many different layers. Some of them are on the level of like technology, some of them are like, you know, like layers of exploitation, of human labor. Even, for example, there are some layers of non-transparency. For example, when you melt few metals into one, it's really hard to reverse engineer from where those metals are coming from. So like a lot of different, yeah. So, but I think it's extremely important that we try to do that, even if we don't, even if we know that we are going to fail, because if we don't try, then we are doomed. And to be so crazy to use all of those technological systems without questioning them, because now we are giving those systems the right to make a decision of like, you know, like the streets that we will take, or are we going to, you know, get a job or not. You know, like a lot of decisions are made by them, but we are not able to question them.
Before yesterday we had a talk here, a program called the Transparency Cafe, that actually we're talking about open code, and we talked a lot about digital literacy. And I asked Andreas, who was presenting here to us, what did he really mean by digital literacy? Because this can mean several things, including being a programmer or coder or reading tables, you know, like Excel tables, and using like different kinds of tools to understand the data and so on. And one thing that I liked, his answer was very simple, that he said, like, the first thing we have to ask, understand how to ask questions to the data, because we are just not being critical at all, you know, at all. It's just take it as it comes because of convenience. And this is something that Amélie Klein, it was one of our advisors with you, and she talks a lot about this, you know, like if we give convenience in this, you know, capitalist society that we live in, so this is everything that we want. If it's easy, it's free, there's no cost, but there's always a cost. There's nothing that comes for free. And I think from our research here for the information crisis and the issue of the biennium, we are just, you know, about 25 to 30 years that we have personal computers at home. So if you think it's 25 years into this new technology, it's very young, you know, technology, very immature, and we're still in the process of getting literate about it, you know, and getting smart. For me, I think like the TV, what the TV was in the 50s, especially when it came to color TV. Everybody believed that whatever shows on TV, it's true. And now we understand that, you know, images are going to come on, Photoshop and so on, you know, like it can be as manipulated as possible. And I think in another 25 years, we're going to be more literate. This is.
But for example, call tone in your phone or in like this, like Amazon Echo, it's probably dating back to the civil war in Congo. So it's like longer. Technology is here, but extraction and exploitation is longer. It takes more time. This is why it's so hardly embedded in the process. You know.
And just one, can I have one final question?
Well, that's, I think that's, you already gave a great bridge to the second session of this evening.
Yeah, okay. Just one more question, because I think if you guys know of Vladim's work, you are curious to know, as I am, if Amazon is actually involved in the process, in the project, if they know about it as a company, if they have ever contacted you about this, or if they fact-checked your research, if it's correct or not, if you have any relationship with Amazon.
No, not at all. We even sneak into their like these factories by like different means and stuff like this. But no. They reacted when we published this because like there was like one part of the essay. An essay is really nice. It's like poetic and everything. But there is one picture that was like like how things are usually happening. You have like one picture, and that picture was a picture of the cage. So what we found, I found like one patent explaining, so how those like storages, Amazon storage system is working by you have like a robot and they're moving shelves, and then on those shelves you have like different products that are not there by some kind of human logic, because human logic will be A, B, C, D or color or shampoos, but those objects on those shelves are basically representation of big data, representation of how people are buying with what, so it's some kind of hyper-optimization of like how those robots are moving. And then you have a human being within that space, and then like, for example, those human beings are like, like completely lost, but they are navigated with some kind of, like navigation systems and stuff like this. And now what they wanted to do, they wanted to put the human being into the cage. So you have a robot, and then on top of the robot it's a cage, and then within the cage it's a worker. And for me that was like such a beautiful, metaphor of like where we are, And then suddenly the newspapers took those pictures and they glowed the story about the cage. So it was everything in Sun, in Times, another like story about the cage. Amazon wanted to put the worker in the cage. And then Amazon reacted, and they said like, no, we are not going to plan this, blah, blah, blah. That was the only official response from them. And then I met one guy.
Jeff Bezos.
Not him. Hard to meet him. Some other guy who said like, he said like, and it was the guy who was like involved in making of Echo. And he said like, wherever I go, this map is following me. So no official communication with them, but
no invitation to work with them yet.
No, I don't think it will happen.
Be a use for it, but I think that's a great picture. If design becomes the nightmare of the ones who does it wrong.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Lydia is going to talk about the exhibition that has opened yesterday at the Galleria Regia. I hope I spelled it correctly. And I give a little introduction to Lydia Nolasco-Rózsás. I hope this is kind of...
It's okay.
It's also out of my comfort zone. It's just very nice. So Lydia, she's a curator, a researcher, and she studied art history and aesthetics at the University of Budapest. And since 2006, she curates exhibitions on contemporary and media arts worldwide. For instance, in collaboration with the ZKM Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe, with the Kronos Art Center in Shanghai, the Tallinn Art Center, and lots of others. And she initiated and developed thematic exhibitions raising questions such as the genealogy and social impact of the planetary computation and computer code, electronic surveillance and democracy, and systemic perceptions. For bio, as I just said, she curated the exhibition within the associated program in collaboration with the ZKM, but also with the Goethe Institute here in Ljubljana, which is on display at Galleria Grecia. Thanks Lydia for coming and giving us a short introduction to the artworks that you put together.
Well, thank you for the introduction. You can sit here, like, but you don't need to go and
Okay.
So I would like to introduce the exhibition, and I thought that it might be interesting to enlighten sort of this title, which brings together two main protagonists, the data and the sovereign, and it might not be completely clear what exactly I tried to talk about, maybe even if you have looked at the artworks or if you have seen the exhibition. And this is why I would like to go into details. And actually, so the first protagonist is data. We have talked about data already quite a lot. So the idea came up that data is a resource, but not a natural one. Although many are saying it was especially like 5 or 10 years ago, saying that data is the new oil. It's the resource of the 21st century after, so like petro-capitalism, info-capitalism is taking over, and so on and so forth. Although it is not a natural resource, it influences with its carbon footprint the natural resources as such. And if we go one further, I wanted to show a few images, mostly from like 2 artworks basically, which are dealing with the physical presence of data centers, like how they look like, how do we perceive them. I mean, a couple of years ago, this came up as a quite a hot topic, because I think it is still like that, but that most of us think of data as something immaterial, as something up in the cloud, and which doesn't have physical presence anywhere. And actually it does. For example, this one is in Belgium. It's still from Ivar Verni's guerrilla documentary on this data center. And if we go one slide further, then
you want to sit here because your hand is cut in pieces. That doesn't look very healthy. It's better.
So this is a still from Emma Charles's White Mountain, which is partly fiction, partly documentary on the same subject. It was documenting a data center. And if you could go on here. And these are my pictures of the CERN data center, which has a particular importance actually among data centers. So like on the one hand, it is storing the most important data, not all the data, because it wouldn't be possible, but the most important data of all the quantum physics experiments which are taking place in Geneva. Although the data center is on the French side, probably because electricity is cheaper over there, it is quite a huge building. It's approximately 50 degrees inside. It's like a palm house without plants, and it's not really convenient to be in there. It's very loud. It's very hot. It's can we? Thank you. And so just to give an overview. One could think that this computational infrastructure is taking up quite a lot of electricity consumption, and due to this chart, it's not exactly like that, although it is getting there. although this is already quite old, it's from 2015, and altogether it's saying that only 0.3% of global electricity is used by data storing or like dealings with data, and the entire computational infrastructure, including our smartphones and PCs and whatever, and the data centers are taking up 2% approximately. But it's significantly growing, as you see in this prediction, which is going till 2030. Can we go on? And then we arrived to a more philosophical approach to this computational infrastructure, which was called by Benjamin H. Breton the stack. So he described the stack as the summary of all the devices, computational devices which are being used on the Earth, and he, together with the design collective Metahaven, conceived this diagram, which is a 6-layer diagram including user interface, address, and cloud Earth, as you see. So here, nature and culture and organic and non-organic stakeholders are brought into one huge mixture. And the important, or for our exhibition, the important point in this is that the subtitle of the book is related to sovereignty. So he also relates the concept of the stack with Westphalian sovereignty, and actually he claims that till nowadays, sort of, like he was writing this in 2016, media theory was not enough concerned with political questions, and he tries to change that with the book. And this is how a man-made structure, a political structure like sovereignty, the Westphalian type of state sovereignty comes in. And this is quite much, in his interpretation, is quite much related to territories, like territories in a classical sense, like geographical territories. I brought this up because it's quite an important interpretation of the connection between sovereignty and technology, but I would, my idea was that this shouldn't be the only one. So if we go to the next slide. And if we approach sovereignty as rather non-territorial, but something which is bounded to persons, not territories, then we need to go back a couple of centuries to Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan, who came up with these metaphors, like Leviathan is the more known one, and after that he came up with the behemoth, and I don't know, so he liked these kind of metaphors. And as you can see, it's part of the frontispiece of the book. And as you can see, there is a huge figure who is the sovereign, and he consists of multiple people. Maybe you can see that, but they are very little. But it's the entire society which gives up certain rights of his and gives it to the sovereign for protection, more or less. This is the idea of the entire book, which was a consequence of a civil war that tried to tidy up a quite complicated situation in England at the time. And if we go one further, then we see two publications which are transcripts of the last series of lectures of Jacques Derrida, who was also publishing quite a lot about sovereignty, but rather the personal sovereignty, so personal type of sovereignty. And it's quite interesting that in this series of lectures, he came up with a comparison of the beast and the sovereign. And the beast, in his perspective, is something or someone what is exceptional. So it has certain rights which are different from the rights of others, and just like a sovereign person who is above man-made law, man-written law. And it has also far-going implications in the sense that the beast and with the beast and the sovereign, not only human sovereignty is discussed, but it's a rather dispersed type of approach to sovereignty, which is including, in his case, other living beings than human, echoing with some philosophies which were becoming mainstream already at the time when he published this, which was a couple of months after 9/11, interestingly. So and within these philosophies, the human and non-human actors, and we could actually include not only living beings but computational agents, if you want, can be sovereign. And this is quite interesting. Or this is what I found striking in this word, that it has so many layers, so many meanings, and it can be used for multiple things. And just an additional footnote that sovereignty has been used in the last couple of years by populist governments in Eastern Europe to in the so-called refugee crisis. I'm showing the parentheses. And they addressed national sovereignty as an important issue. Although 20 years ago, for example, Derrida was one of the main protagonists of its deconstruction. And so basically, that's the idea behind the exhibition. And if you go one slide further, then we arrive to the exhibition. If you haven't seen it yet, and maybe I just shortly run through the 5 artworks. So it's a very little and compact exhibition, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So one piece is Hassan El-Ahi's Tale. It's also a post 9/11 piece, because it turned out shortly after that, so in 2002 approximately, that when Hassan El-Ahi wanted to return to the United States, he's a state citizen, then he was held captive on the airport, and so it turned out that he was on a secret list of the FBI. After quite a lot of investigation, he came to this conclusion, and because of his name. and because they were post 9/11, the FBI, the NSA, everyone in the United States was looking for possible terrorists, and somebody with a so-called Muslim name, Hassan al-Aki, was a suspect. So, and then he decided quite interesting way to deal with this. He started to document his life, and he published it on the one hand on a website, his whereabouts. He was documenting all the places he went to, all the toilets, all the beds, all the food he ate, everything, and then he spammed the FBI with that. So this artwork shows a certain counteraction against state agency which is surveilling on its citizens in such a penetrant manner. And the other piece is, another one is thisnovation.org's latest work, Profiling the Profilers. It's also a counteract, let's say, and in this artwork, the artists are criticizing the private sector, online platforms which are basically running on ads, and they are publishing targeted ads, for these targeted ads, profiling of the users is needed, and they sort of reverse engineered that algorithms together with a computer scientist in France, and wrote algorithms which are profiling the companies which are usually profiling the users. And next one, please. This is a piece of Kim Albrecht's, and it's called Artificial Senses, and it's sort of a groundwork, but I think you will tell more about this work, or we have the chance to talk about it. For the exhibition, it was important to show how data is being made, how computational sensation is being done, and what is the direct result of it, how can it be visualized, and how can it be materialized in a certain manner. And another piece which is rather about cultural implication of platforms which we are using every day is 9 Questions by Kate Crawford and Nolasco-Rózsás, if I pronounce it right. One of the 9 questions is the platform is not the territory, and I chose to show this one because we talked quite a lot about territory. It's quite an important concept if the digital and the real or the physical is clashing in a certain sense. Although these 9 questions are touching up like tackling, let's say, different phenomena related to online platform life and online platform culture in a manner of Jenny Holzer's truisms from the early 70s, which were sentences like general truths or something like that, and at the time Jenny Holzer put these sentences on T-shirts, on the street, on street signs, and so on and so forth. Lately, they sort of changed the status. Like I've just read last week, I think that there's a large-scale projection of truisms of Jenny Holzer on very posh hotel in Switzerland in the Alps, and it's quite interesting contextualization of the same thing. Well, in this case,
abuse of Jenny Holzer comes without no surprise. Abuse of Jenny Holzer comes without no surprise.
Yeah. So one of the truisms is abuse of power comes with no surprise, and it was twisted a little bit by Kate Crawford and Mara, and they said that abuse of data comes as no surprise. But in this case, the visitors can decide whether they agree or not with the statements, and they can place a sticker on the board, so it remains an open work in this sense. And maybe that's the trickiest work of all, because we see artificial succulents, so these plants, artificial plants, on an inscription which says organizing information is never innocent. And it refers to an investigative process, an investigative project of Gerardo Juarez, who tried to tackle the dealings of the Google Art Institute, because the Google Art Institute made a promise to bring together all the cultural information of the world and make it accessible to everyone. And actually Gerardo was pretty skeptical about that, and she said that okay, but maybe it's rather a type of techno-colonialism, so we need to investigate a little more. And this is how she tries to draw attention to it. And she drew a parallel between bioprospecting and data prospecting. And this is why we have plants here, because bioprospecting is about finding commercial, commercial values in natural resources such as plants, for example. So these are the 5 works which are included in the exhibition, and they try to circumscribe different aspects of personal but also state sovereignty, depending on geographical or let's say personal territories. And I will finish it with that.
Thank you very much for this introduction to the exhibition, and also all to put together this small but very powerful exhibition, I would say, also generating new works on this occasion. Also, once more, thanks to the Goethe Institute and also to all the other collaborators in this project. So now we also got Kim Albrecht with us in the panel, and he is also back. A short introduction to Kim Albrecht. He visualizes cultural, technological, and scientific forms of knowledge. He's actually a trained graphic and interface designer. He sees himself as a knowledge designer. We might hear about what this means. And also as an aesthetic researcher. He worked as a researcher at the Center for Complex Network Research and joined the Meta Lab at Harvard. And he currently writes his PhD at the University of Potsdam in the field of media theory. In his artistic work, he explores the boundaries of visual knowledge and post-digital knowledge. Yes, so what is a knowledge designer?
If I would know what a knowledge designer is, what is a knowledge designer? I mean, what I do in my practice is, like, most of the time that I take a data set, or I work with researchers, I work with, like, information structures and try to find visual forms for that. And of course, I think it's very pretentious to call that a knowledge designer, and it definitely suggests that this hierarchy that you are basically promoting functions and works. I'm not so sure about that and how well this kind of different levels are actually bound together.
I just want to check on the sound. Can you guys hear from in the back?
Okay.
Everybody? Or you want microphone? Because it's more comfortable for us without microphone. Is it okay? Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I could elaborate maybe a bit more on that. What I find interesting is maybe the root of data comes from Latin and means the given, which is a weird thing to think about data as a given, as something that exists in the world and that is just there, because like, as someone working with this and trying to manipulate it and creating it, I realize how designed data is and how creative it is and how through that it is political and has a power component within it. So I think that's important to think about, and that knowledge is always designed. Then it makes maybe more sense in that way, that like everything, all of these things are always have a design component, and with them political dimension that we can change and that we can adjust and that we can arrange in certain ways. So it's always a perspective, it's not the given, not at all.
do you want a little bit explore the project that you have, the installation that you have in the exhibition, the artificial senses?
Yeah. We can maybe show one. So in the exhibition, what you see are 6 tablets hanging from the ceiling, and what I looked into or what I researched is what kind of sensors, what kind of sensing devices are basically in every smartphone, in every laptop, in every tablet that we have with us every day. So how do the systems that we basically each of us has in this room, how do they understand, not understand, but how do they sense, how do they track the world? And how is it different to how we perceive the world, how we understand what making sense, how being embedded in space, how different that is. So what we see here is the camera of that laptop over there. And so this is basically the camera signal 1 level above binary code, visualized in points from black to white. And what I'm trying to do here is to create some form of alternative interfaces. So now the light is blocked off, and you see how the signal changes and how the signal goes away. So I'm trying to create alternative views of this, because if we think about it, how this is presented on our screens is always interfaces always try to be as human as possible, as close to how we imagine it. They always try to be as easy to understand as possible, and I'm trying to create counter-narratives to tell other stories, to not be simple, not be easy, not be Steve Jobs and say it just works, you don't need to care about it, but to promote something that gives an alternative view that is closer to the way that the machines are actually handling these things. And this project is one of a series that I'm doing, and it was the first project where I looked at sensing.
There's actually something you told me yesterday, that the senses and the sensors of these machines, how it's visualized, actually the machines can read this back.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you take these images and you put back to the software, the computer system behind it can understand.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to expand on what you told me yesterday. Like the 6 tablets, each one of them has different sensors. So one is camera, so it's visual. The other one is audio and geolocation. And touching, and
gyroscope, so how fast you move the tablet, and in which direction you point the tablet. So the 6 things that are basically in all of the. What you're talking about are like I made myself some kind of design guidelines that are maybe different than other design projects, and the most important feature for me was that all of these images are easily readable for the machine. So the images basically function as databases that are images. So I'm storing the data in a machine-readable format in these images that are constantly updated. But that is very foreign for us. It's something that actually computer scientists sometimes use. So because images can be kind of small, and you can store a lot of data in them. But it's nothing that we normally see. So I'm exploring that as a tool to create this counter narratives, to create this anti-interfaces.
Just one more point. Yesterday on the exhibition, several people came to ask about, this work make them think about data capturing. So is this capturing everything that I say and I storing somewhere? And then I told them, no, it's actually not. It's just showing how the machine is perceiving all of this movement and audios, but it's actually not creating a database for you. You're not capturing these in the exhibition.
No, they're as soon as the image, it overwrites itself constantly. So it's not storing any of the information, and that's not the point. It's the point is to make it visible, to give an alternative view, to tell this other kind of narrative. And for me, it's connected to a different kind of design paradigm, maybe, that we should get away from this modernist view of design as this Dieter Rams view of as little design as possible. You only should have one knob, but rather create something that can give you some kind of insight into the complexities that are lying behind the systems.
So when we discussed or pre-discussed this talk, Aline and me was looking at these kind of words, to me at least, or to us, I don't know, it's must have been looking at abstract painting in the early 20th century. I don't know, is that kind of the era we're in, that we actually
abstract design?
No, well, abstract design, but it's still kind of, you need to, that's also meant with literacy. I mean, we need to understand, we need to learn that ABC, also to kind of read this, because, not being that literate, to me it's abstract.
Yeah, but that's not a problem. So I mean, in abstract painting, it's still the same. So abstraction came out of something. It had very strong philosophical, especially in abstraction later on, very strong religious background, and
making use of an art historian.
Yeah. So it did need the explanation. It still does, well. I have a job. That's nice. So and it's the same with digital art, and it's going to remain as such, I guess.
But I want to ask you a question. Livia brought up Derrida. When it brought Derrida, it means it got serious, super serious philosophy here. And you're talking about this book, The Beast and the Sovereign. And actually, when Thomas and I were discussing this for the exhibition talk as data as the beast or the beauty or the beast, and is it good or is it bad, or it's ugly or it's everything, or how to process that. So, and in your case, you talked about Derrida's idea of the beast as someone with more privilege, maybe, than the regular citizen or the regular people. And would you relate this to data as the beast and the beauty somehow, like the good and the bad, or?
Well, instead of beast in the title of the exhibition is data. So basically, this is how it's not an equation mark between the. It's. I wouldn't say that the beast is the data or the data is the beast, but sort of. But in a metaphorical manner, I'd say.
But it's because data is not regulated yet?
It is regulated in a way, but we just it's actually not data itself. It's the way we are dealing with it, and it has been regulated for a while, as it is everything else about computation. But there are a lot of gray zones, and this is why the abuse of data might be still an issue, because there are still quite a lot of gray zones in the usage and the different freedoms of data or data to that.
Maybe also making use of your broad knowledge in that field. I mean, you were, or in the previous session, we were talking about anatomy of an AI. We also sort of learned or started, kind of, just using this device. We are trapped with all the complexity behind it that with most of the items and products that we buy on a daily basis, have no clue about, or have even not the brain power, possibility to research or investigate these things instantly. That work of Hassan Alai, who's like a counteraction of his surveillance of his person, or I mean, could you give some more? I mean, this counteraction also seems to be like a useful methodology or method to navigate in this field of permanent data harvesting or surveillance or whatsoever. Do you have some other interesting counteraction projects that you could just come up to your mind?
Also somewhat like 10-15 years, but the first thing that comes to my mind is a project of the meeting of the Bitnik, Swiss artist group, and they were basically they went to certain parts of the city, and they tried to connect with the person who was sitting on the other side of the surveillance camera through messages, and this is how they made a sort of counter surveillance action, but it's sort of a heroic era when a person was sitting on the other side of the camera, not an algorithm. So it already seems to be obsolete, sort of. There are several projects as such, like also dealing with digital surveillance. But is there another intention behind this question?
No, it's just a way of...
It's a quiz, it's to know if you want to know. But actually, Livia has curated several other exhibitions related to data, including talking about security. What was it? That global control and censorship, and then about open data as well. And I wonder where, is it a series of exhibitions that you just keep going? The subject evolves, and then you have another frame for the exhibition, for example, or it's just like, as I am experiencing now as a curator, this subject is so broad and it's impossible to find the right angle to talk. There's so many that you just have how many more exhibitions on this topic you can talk about, forever.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the nice thing about it, like surveillance and surveillance capitalism, as Shoshana Zuboff came up with this term lately. Day after we tackled the issue in several exhibitions, in a series of exhibitions. It's coming up again and again in waves whenever there's a scandal in the United States. So usually that's the trigger, and also like open calls. The other exhibition you referred to was rather a different take on the topic. It was rather an educational experiment, but in which included also on the one hand the teleology and on the other the current and possible future impact, social aspects of computing and algorithms. And both topics have so they just bring up different questions, and of course one exhibition is not enough to tackle all of them. So it's always nice to have an opportunity to concentrate on one question, and that was the case with the data and the sovereign. So I was really happy that I got this chance to investigate.
So now you keep having a job, more exhibitions. But just to relate to this question is about the open code, shared data, for example, the commons, Creative Commons, that Thomas and I are super interested in this exhibition, in relation to the sovereign. How does it relate somehow, or you should protect, it's about open codes and privacy at the same time, or how do you keep the sovereignty of yourself, your person, and sharing your data at the same time?
Yeah, well, it's a slippery slope, that's for sure. So like privacy issues in the open data movement are present from the beginning on, but there are certain data sets which are for the common good, and we need to draw the line of privacy. So like where is the line or where is the threshold from which is it invading privacy and which is for the common good? So it's also a common decision we need to make, and of course the answer to this question would be very, very different in an Asian country than in a European country, it has to be discussed. So this is why I personally, and also the TechCam where I work, is pushing constantly such issues, because these are things we need to talk about. We need to make a consensus and figure out what is the best currently for our society.
And who gets to decide? It's a matter of sovereignty as well. Who gets to decide? Because right now the digital monopolies are deciding it, not the government, not us.
More or less, but it's fortunately not that straightforward. But yeah.
Well, we refer in our exhibition, or deriving from the information crisis, big data is one of the buzzwords, and in your introductory text to the exhibition, you write data is considered big. That implements somehow that you question this.
No, it was just I wouldn't question this. It was just I was describing the different types of data, and of course there is big data, and of course it is a buzzword, and it became lately even more a buzzword because big data or data sets are a basis for algorithms, for AIs to learn and to train themselves, and this is why surveillance relates to certain questions of AI as well, because algorithms can be trained on feeds of surveillance cameras as well, and the whole thing can be automatized. So this is how the counter-surveillance work of the million Google Bitnik is not working anymore nowadays. So these things are all interconnected in a certain
contribute to big data with your work?
I don't think, I don't think I contribute at all to big data because, first I find the name very weird, but they normally define it that big data is data that you can't store on a single computer anymore, or on a household computer, and I've never worked with anything that is that large. Normally it's also a problem with processing from a size that is easily storable on my hard drive. It's utterly difficult to work with that already, so I never came close to anything that has that size. I worked in a physics lab where we had, for 2.5 years, where we had a data center, and yeah, there we had pretty big data sets, but I don't think I'm contributing to that. I'm trying to find ways to make it less opaque, maybe.
So visualizing data right now, with your work, would you say the intention, like you said, to make it less opaque, is it to make transparent to the viewers? So when we see your work, we should understand what the computer is feeling in the sense of
feeling is a difficult term, but
help me out.
So I think my practice very much changed over the last couple of years, but also due to my PhD in philosophy, that I made a lot of visualization where I basically took a data set and visualized that, and I made this graphics about movies, and I made graphics about all kinds of systems that are out there, from the universe to Donald Trump. But nowadays, I'm more interested not to use visualization anymore as windows into the world, where I'm exploring a phenomena that's out there, but rather as a mirror to reflect on computation itself and to create some images that hint at how uncanny and how crazy these devices are that we have with us, and that look so normal to us because the companies that create the systems make them look so easy and so you never know, when you search for a website, within the split second that request normally goes to about 7 data centers all around the world within microseconds. And who knows about this infrastructure, what's really happening when you're using these devices. So I'm trying to create images that give us views of this uncanny reality that is so common to us, but still so far away.
So as I understood, right now you're a PhD candidate studying philosophy. Not art and not design, but you're using these tools of visualization in your work as a philosopher and studying philosophy. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're questioning, in your PhD right now, your research?
The basic questions that I'm asking in my research, or in my PhD, my research is still separated from that, but totally untangled, is what kind of knowledge what kind of knowledge do these images, do visualization present us? And what kind of worldview can we gain through that? What kind of worldview can we actually have from data? And what do we lose if we track things, if we capture things in this form? If our world gets so predefined by the computational systems. There's basically no natural science out there anymore that is not where anything they do is not processed through these machines. And how is that predefining how we understand the world and how we embed it in the world, and how is that different to how we are as humans with a physical body?
I just want to talk about Luciano Floridi. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work. He's also a philosopher and thinker from the UK. And we use his book as our base, as the base for our research here. It's called The Fourth Revolution. And the fourth revolution that we are right now is the information revolution. And it's an interesting question for us, reading this from Floridi, that he's calling the fourth revolution is how we understand ourselves, like, and the information is changing how we understand ourselves. So he defines this as info-orgs. So now we have this presence as just information. So we have this, as I said before, that in real life, and now we have this persona online that we're very familiar with right now, you know, after these 25 years of computers at home. So I think it's quite interesting, and we're getting to another level of understanding, you know, digital and data and so on. I think, this is my personal opinion, not Florida's opinion, because we're already putting ethics and philosophy into these questions. You know, it's not just about tools anymore, it's about how you can use it. It's more, it's like how it's transforming how we see ourselves. So it was just a comment about the question. So
yeah, I mean, like I think it's not. I wouldn't say we're going to another level. We're going somewhere else, and it might, in a lot of ways, not be the best path we're taking. For example, what I'm looking at is like the emotions you can express on Facebook. I mean, there are 6 emotions. I don't know how I feel right now. I don't think any of us could express their emotional state at any point in time in like 6 predefined sets. But you can either be haha, laugh, cry, or
angry.
And I'm wondering, like, to what extent we are shaping these machines, but at the same time, these machines shape us. So, to what extent are we becoming this like simplified versions because Twitter only allows us to retweet and to like something, but nothing else, while we have so much more agency in the world that we're embedded in. So I think it's like, it goes in all kinds of directions.
You somehow relate the data sovereignty also to data literacy?
Yeah, so there's a beautiful German word of Selbstbestimmung, of self-determinacy, let's say, which is a key term in open data and in the open data movement as well as it's very much related to the already coined term and used online sovereignty. Both, so like they are referring to our agency in defining our actions, so like the impact of our actions on social media platforms, in online life, or like using computers in any kind of way. And actually, yeah, basically, this is it.
Well, I think we did a little round trip around data and sovereignty. I think I would keep open questions to a glass of wine and some bites and just have an informal chat around the evening. I would like to thank very much our guests from the first and the second panel. Have set up some computers in here to get more heat. But most of us
please next time the data center.
Data center that we have set up here. So thank you very much. Thank you, Alina, for your introduction and question. Thank you, Marusha and Nusha, and everybody in the background, and the filmmaker, the whole bio team. Uwe Reisig once more again from the Goethe Institute to make it possible to bring the exhibition here within the framework of bio. So yes, we already promoted the magazine, and there are not just one magazine, there are 4 magazines out now, and please go and get them. The 5th one is approaching with the next talk, which takes place on February 7th. Here at Mao at 6 p.m. With a special guest, Edith Rosen's gonna come, and 3 more. and hope we're going to see you again. Thank you.